Although it may seem a little gauche, let's talk money. Talking about salary can be more than a little sensitive and at times a little contentious. But I can pretty much bet that the majority of us think that we aren't being paid enough, especially in tough times like this where your paycheck never seems to last. Hence why we seem to have a fascination for what other people are paid. Specifically though, I want to talk about CEO compensation. So, why is this important? Well, if you are shareholders of a company, you will want to know where the person at the helm has your best interests in mind. For the man on the street, we definitely want to see where we stand in the grand scheme of things. That is why we still read Forbes' rich lists with varying degrees of interest, even if they did sacrifice a bit of their dignity for clicks when they called Kylie Jenner a self-made billionaire. Yeah, sure Forbes, I see what you did there. But aside from what they are paid, maybe the more pertinent question would be, are they paid too much? This was the question The Edge asked recently about what was actually the right and fair way to compensate a CEO. Of course, the most no-duh answer is that it should be tied to performance. But again, how do you quantify performance? Because are we talking shareholder returns here or the ability to sing My Way Well at karaoke? Although since the bulk of the CEOs are men, I do assume that almost all of them would have actually sung that song at one point in their lives. In the recent special report, it was evaluated through 4 methods: as a percentage of net profit, compensation as a measure of market cap, compensation versus returns to shareholders, and CEO compensation versus staff compensation. Ultimately, the report went with the argument that CEO compensation as a percentage of shareholders as the fairest measure, because it shows the relationship between what the CEO and the shareholders get and whether their interests are really aligned. Topping the best paid CEO list is Genting boss Tan Sri Lim Kok Tae, who took home 183 million ringgit in compensation in FY 2018. But it is interesting to note that while his compensation went up 9%, Genting's net profit fell 5.5%, while total returns to shareholders fell 32%. In a word, ouch. Hence why at its recent AGM, a lot of shareholders were said to have cheered and clapped when Kok Tae volunteered to take a 20% pay cut to counterbalance the government's choice to hike gaming taxes. Saying that, there were apparently some shareholders who thought it should have been 50%, but yeah, can't please them all. But that in a nutshell does kind of sum up people's feelings when it comes to pay. And it simply sometimes boils down to is whether we feel they are justified that 6-figure salary versus us working stiffs busting our butts day after day. We will come back to that. But related to this is this table about CEO compensation as a percentage of total staff costs. The top 3 in this case comprise the late Tan Sri Lee Shin Cheng from IOI, Kok Tae, and Tan Sri Jeffrey Chia from the Sunway Group. While percentage-wise, none of the 3 men's compensation goes up to double digits, but in terms of ratios, you are talking about hundreds of times compared to the average salary of their staff. And that is just the average staff salary, never mind those who come in on the ground floor. This idea of what CEOs are paid versus their staff is a particularly big talking point in the US. Especially when you consider these stats from the Economic Policy Institute that show that between 2016 and 2017, average CEO compensation went up 17.6%. Your average Joe worker, a fairly pitiful 0.3%. In 2017, the CEO to worker compensation ratio was 312 to 1, while just 30 years ago, it was 58 to 1. One thing to note, the metric used by the EPI includes stock options. So if the stock does well, the ratio goes up. But still, you are talking another universe at this point pay-wise. Hence why a lot of us kind of got it when this video went viral of Democrat Katie Porter taking JP Morgan Chase CEO Jamie Dimon to task about how little their workers are paid.
She doesn't have the ability right now to spend your $31 million.
I'm fully sympathetic.
She's short 567. What would you suggest she do?
I don't know. I'd have to think about that.
Dimon takes home $31 million US, and that is the answer he gives. Going back to Genting as an example, according to figures from Glassdoor, a croupier at one of Genting's casinos is expected to earn about 1 to 2K ringgit monthly. Now, remember the EPF's hotly contested Belanjawanku budget? They estimate that for a single public transport user, the budget estimate a month is 1,870 ringgit. And even that was called unrealistic. But to be fair, Glassdoor doesn't take into account whether any benefits like accommodation or food are covered and whether training is provided, so that is something to keep in mind. Even with that, it is easy to see where general resentment can spring from. After all, the term fat cats exists for a reason. So the best way to deal with it? Transparency. Of course, some CEOs do deserve what they take home because in the case of IOI's Lee or Sunway's Chia, they built their fortunes from the ground up. But in other cases, not everyone gives a clear set of KPIs as to why their CEOs are paid the way they are. And there is no such thing as a standardized set of rules because industries themselves vary, so no one size fits all. Yet, if a clear checklist is laid out as to what milestones these CEOs must hit is laid out, not only to the shareholders, but literally for the world to see, then people won't call for your head if you happen to bring home millions. Because if your KPI is to double profits and to increase salaries, and you achieve it, then by all means take home your pay packet. But if your KPI is to not set the office on fire, then don't blame us for being less sympathetic when every month is a struggle for the man on the street. So yes, money. It is gauche to talk about it, but we all kind of need to. And for those who sit at Malaysia's 1%, maybe now is the best time to actually come clean. Because I am sure not all of you are.
Genius, billionaire, playboy, philanthropist.
Just saying.